All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our city council tonight. We're glad to be back here at the High Chaparral where we can spread out, and I'm not a big fan of the Zoom meeting, so I like being here if we can do it safely. So I've asked Councilman Schoves to give us an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to be able to meet together as a council and as citizens of the great city of Spanish Fork through the means of technology and to be able to be here in person. We're grateful for the blessings which our community has enjoyed through this pandemic and through this season, the safety which we enjoy in our community. We pray for the first responders, for all those that are in harm's way, that they might be safe, protected as they go about their duties. We pray for our community. We may continue to be safe through the pandemic and through the upcoming winter season. We're grateful for this opportunity to be able to serve, and pray thy Spirit might be with us through this meeting, that all thoughts and conversations might be well understood, that we may be able to have thy Spirit to guide the affairs of the council and to be able to understand as citizens the needs and things that are important and necessary for our growth and continued safety. We pray for those that are in harm's way throughout the world, that they might have their needs met and be safe, protected. We're grateful for all that we have. Pray for our local, our state, and national leaders, that they might be guided to make decisions that are correct and for the benefit of our state and for our country. And this we do pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Argyle to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The audience, please rise and repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on our agenda is we've got a recognition here. You want to come up and take care of that, Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Harriman, Special Event Supervisor. With me, I have Oakley Farnsworth and her mother, Kylie Farnsworth. What we did recently for the Festival of Lights is we were introducing our new fixture, which is a elf washing a reindeer. And we thought we would have some fun with this and have a coloring contest for the kids and a naming the elf contest. And so staff chose their favorite names that were suggested, and then the public voted, and they liked Oakley's suggestion of Jingles. So this is a picture that Oakley drew, and as you can see, the name the elf is Jingles. And so in the next couple days, you'll see a sign on the elf fixture at Festival of Lights that has the name Jingles, so everybody will remember that she named our elf. And Oakley, how'd you come up with the name Jingles?
My favorite Christmas song is Jingle Bell Rock.
Her favorite Christmas song is Jingle Bell Rock.
All right.
Nice.
Thank you.
How old is Oakley?
5.
5. Good job.
Nice job, Oakley. You did good. I love people that we have in this great city, you know, and the things that we have. Thanks, Emily, for putting that on. And if anybody hasn't been to the Festival of Lights, get up there and you can get in that nice long line, but it goes pretty quick. So it's beautiful up there, and it's awesome. Okay, we've got a oath of a new officer. Chief, you want to...
Grateful for the opportunity to introduce our newest hired officer and his spouse. This is the first time I think that we've had the spouse come up, and I think it's a great thing to start and continue on with. But Trevor Thompson is our newest hired officer. He came from us from Mapleton. I think he spent 3 years in Mapleton, which he's following in some good footsteps, because that's exactly what I did. I started in Mapleton, and it was good training grounds for me, and it has been for other officers who work for Spanish Fork, and it has been for Trevor. He's come to us with some great accolades. One of the things that's happened for him to get to this position is he had to beat out 100 people that applied for this position. Not all of them came as qualified as Trevor did, but nevertheless, there were more people that applied for his position than applied for mine back in the day. And so he beat out all of those individuals and has gone through the testing procedures with our officers and sergeants and lieutenants. Is now beginning our field training program, probably 32 weeks? 2 weeks into that now. And I heard today from the lieutenants that are over that division that he is excelling through the program. So he'll be out on the road typically a lot faster than what is typical. But with that, we'd like to welcome Trevor, Sierra, Thompson family to our family. They have 2 children, and we're so grateful that he chose to come to Spanish Fork to work. And Mayor, if you wouldn't mind giving him the oath of the office, we'd appreciate that.
You make it? I was gonna move the table.
Go on up there. All right. Just raise your right arm. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Trevor Thompson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and obey and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with
And-
fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Does he know what the mayor drives so he doesn't give him a ticket? Okay, good job, Trevor.
That's the first training they
Yeah.
do, is show them that. That's awesome. Hey, you're joining some good brothers there and sisters, so I'll tell you what, we've got a great force there, and we appreciate each and every one of them. Okay, let's move on to public comments. Anyone from the public that'd like to come and address the mayor and the council, you're welcome to come up here. You're far enough away that you can, yeah, you can. But turn it the other way, face, the cameras are that way, so those 14 million people that need to see you.
I want to face you guys. Okay, I just wrote down a couple of notes because I knew I'd forget what I wanted to say. And I can do this without crying. As I contemplate retiring from the city in a few weeks, I just wanted the chance to come in front of the mayor and council and our administration and my coworkers to thank Spanish Fork City and all of you for letting me grow and learn and progress for all these years. You know, the job, well, I've had many jobs within the city, but the job I first got in Spanish Fork City was only the second job I had ever had, and the first job only lasted a month. So I think I've done a lot better in this job than I did in that one. I just wanted to thank all the council members and mayors that I've had a chance to work with, including all of you, for being supportive to your city employees, for trying to help solve problems when they arise, and for being the sounding board when needed. I always knew you guys had my back, and that That's important as an employee to know that you're supported. I'm really appreciative of our city administration, both under Dave Whaler and Seth Perrins. They've led by allowing employees to do their jobs, but have been there when they've been needed to give direction or correction. I remember Dave saying that city employees were one of the city's greatest assets, and that's how I feel like that I've always been treated, and I really appreciate that. I feel like the work that I've tried to do has been valued. One thing that the administration instigated and you as a council and mayor supported was the wellness program for the city. And that's been about, I think, 5 years ago that we did that. And I know we did it partly to help with our insurance and thinking that employees that were aware of wellness would be able to be at work more often than being sick. But that made a big difference in my life, just bringing that awareness to developing healthy habits and having some incentives from the city, but also some friendly competitions that we've had that made it fun. But that just shows what a great city we have, from the administration right to the council, that supports and wants the well-being of their employees as one of the most important things. I've been lucky to only have 2 bosses in all the years that I've worked for the city. When I started out right out of high school, I worked with Jack Swenson, and I worked with him for many years and saw lots of changes. We've seen so much growth in our Parks and Recreation Department. At that time when we started, we were just the Recreation Department and not the Parks and Recreation Department. And then to work with Dale Robinson for the last 24 years. These are 2 of the greatest men I know and have been great mentors to me, have shown trust in me and helped me take on new responsibilities and grow. And I just really value the impact that they've had on my life. I'm also appreciative for the many volunteers that I've been able to work with special events, with the Arts Council, with the Senior Center. We have some of the most selfless giving people in our city that are just right there ready to volunteer and ready to serve. And I'm so blessed to have some lifelong friendships from these people. And then I'm just so appreciative of my Parks and Rec coworkers throughout our whole department, and also many other city employees that work hard, that are not only helpful and good workers in their public life, but they're good people. They're kind and friendly, and I just value those associations so much, especially the people in my office. They're like my family. That's going to be the hardest thing about retiring, is those day-to-day associations. But I'll still be around, and I'm still willing to serve, just not every day. So I just wanted the chance to tell you how amazing this has been. I never dreamed when I went to work right out of high school, and then after I got divorced and came back knowing I needed to support my family, that this would develop into a career that has had such a great influence on me and my family, and I just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thanks, Karen.
You better.
I should have went before her, not after. I got a hole in my heart. This is difficult for me. I'll tell you, I haven't met a person like Karen. They definitely broke the mold and left it up the canyon somewhere when she was born. I've never met a harder worker in my life, and somebody who's more dedicated to a cause and has more integrity in all aspects of her life. I probably shouldn't tell you this because Kent will fall off his chair, but our money was safer in the back of Karen Bradford's trunk than it was in our office back in the day. That was a long time ago, Kent. We don't do that anymore. You know that. But Karen has dedicated her life
to this department and to this city. She started when she was 16 years old. I know she only looks like she's 30 now, but for 38 years, more than that actually. 38's what's on the record, right? So it was long before that, but Karen has been the heart and soul of this department ever since its inception, and is responsible for many of the wonderful activities and facilities and programs that we have in the city that all of our residents enjoy. And you know, Howard and Nellie Barney raised a fine young woman and taught her the basic principles. Being a Bird's Eye Ranch girl, she learned how to work, and she learned how to do it with class and with integrity. And there aren't enough words to describe how awesome she has been. It's going to be hard not to have her there, and she's meant a lot to a lot of people, and she's helped teach me and lead me, and together we've made a pretty good team. But Karen's been the mother, and I've leaned on her a lot. She's been in the forefront in the leadership of our department for all these years, and I'm so grateful that I was blessed to be able to be associated with her in this way. Not only in her work life, but in her personal life is just completely full of integrity and character. And she's a classy lady. She's had to deal with some very difficult circumstances in her life, and she handles them with class and with a lot of faith and trust in other people. And I'm grateful for her and want to thank her for all of the wonderful years of service. We have committed her. You're going to see her at Hershey Track. I told her, Chief, that she could go ahead and work hours ahead of time and accumulate those in case she needed any community service hours. Is that correct? Can we create a program where we can bankroll those in case she needs them later? But Karen's going to still help out in the community. She's service-oriented, always the last one to leave, but she loves this community and has put her heart and soul in it. And thank you, Karen. Love you.
You will be missed. We sure appreciate all you've done, Karen, and I've known you for a long, long time, and sure appreciate our friendship and the hard work you've done for the city, and you deserve this retirement, and we appreciate, and we'll look forward to seeing you again and again and again. So thank you once again. Anyone else would like to address the mayor and the council? Seeing none, then I'll go to council comments, and I'll start out. This past week, the rodeo committee got to go to our NFR. Normally we go to Vegas. They go to a lot of committee meetings down there, and they wouldn't let us have it in Vegas, so Fort Worth stepped forward, and we had it in Fort Worth, Texas last week, and it was really awesome. Nick, you want to show that? So right there, the short one, that's the mayor of Fort Worth. It was kind of a dark picture there, but she spoke to us. I had the opportunity to go talk to her, and we talked for a while. She gave me a little Longhorn pin. I should have wore it, but she welcomed us to Fort Worth. Her name is Betsy Price. She's the longest serving mayor in Fort Worth, and so she's a Spitfire, and she's real dedicated. Might show a couple, and Nick might have some pictures here, but here's another picture, maybe. Well, that's not mine, but that's okay. White's, that's, if anybody wants to see White's, he does go to meetings when we go to these things. Contrary to beliefs, that he paid attention and he took notes and he was right there. Yeah, it's a little different from Vegas, but right there. So they held the NFR in the Texas Ranger brand new baseball stadium, and so that's how they had it set up. So it was pretty interesting, pretty awesome rodeo there at the NFR. There which is going on right now. All right, I'm going to turn the time over to Nick, and he's going to tell us a little more about all the fun stuff there.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have members of the rodeo committee here tonight. I'm going to introduce them real quick. Chris Ivy, Jeff Whites Nelson, Kevin Parker, and Doug Ford. There's a few others here, but they're not representing, so I don't know if we need to point out Dale Robinson, the mayor, and Seth Perrins. It was a fun trip. We needed some kind of normalcy, and we needed some contract people, frankly, that we needed to go down there and kind of interview and shop and hire. So it was a really good trip. We were lucky enough to be nominated for one of the top 5 large rodeos in the country. We've won a lot of awards over the years, and that's an award that we've never been nominated for. That's all the largest rodeos. That puts us in the same category with Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Pendleton, Oregon, and some of the really big rodeos. So it was a real honor. It didn't turn out how we wanted it to. We weren't the overall winner, but we did receive a plaque stating that we were top 5. So I'll give that to you guys. Maybe Mayor's seen it, Brandon. We'll pass it right here. I would like to thank you guys, the mayor and the council. I'm sure you guys all remember back right the end of May, 1st of June. It was a really tough decision if we were going to be able to hold the rodeo this year. I think even our committee was split. If it was the right thing to do, if we could pull it off, do it safely. The mayor was steadfast that we could do it and should do it. And with you guys' support and his support, we made it happen. It turned out awesome. We worked hand in hand with the state and the local health departments. Not a single case of COVID was attributed to the rodeo, which was a real feat to run 30,000 plus people through here in 5 days and make that happen. I really need to thank the residents and the fans that came to the rodeo. It was nerve-wracking. You know, it was one thing to put it on, but will they show up? Are they comfortable going out with the safety precautions we've put in place? And we kind of stuck our necks out there, and they did. We sold out every night, the tickets that we were allowed. So I need to thank the rodeo committee. This year, if putting the rodeo on is hard normally, this year it was extra double hard. There was a lot of new challenges, things that we've taken for granted in the past. So we have a really good committee, and I want to thank them for all their hard work. Anyway, I think that's all I've got.
Really?
Yep. Thank you.
One thing you forgot to mention that they had a panel up there on one of our meetings, and Nick represented. He was one of 5 that was on that panel and talked about our rodeo and how putting it on during a COVID and how we handled it. And Nick did a great job up there. So thanks for representing us up there.
You bet. As the mayor said, it was a fun year. There were kind of all eyes on Spanish Fork. I think as far as big rodeos, we probably had as many fans and might have been one of the biggest rodeos that was held this year. So it really was a feat that we were able to pull it off.
Yep. And thanks to all of the rodeo committee and everyone else that helped make that rodeo a success. And we appreciate all the hard work all you've done. And I think this award that we received is a great thanks for what we did, and we're recognized. We even had the president of the Pro Rodeo Association come to our rodeo, so, and the number 2 guy. So that's pretty amazing. He's never come before, and so that's quite an honor that we had to have him here. So thank you, each one of you. Okay, let's move on. Councilman Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. Had a South Utah Valley Solid Waste District meeting before Thanksgiving. Happy to report we had our annual audit as our fiscal year ends January 1st. We reported a clean audit, and a lot of the discussion then surrounded the new transfer station, which we all know will be built in Spanish Fork. And as we continue to plan for that, we will surplus 5.8, just under 6 acres in front of the future site. We discussed that, that property being surplused. I did not attend the New Era board meeting, which is, of course, all of the transfer stations from northern Utah, and therefore I was elected to be the vice chairman.
That's what happens.
And then the gentleman that was elected to be the chairman declined, and so today they called and asked me to be the chairman. And so I wanted to report that, and so I'll be reporting from those meetings as well. And I'm not sure if Chris Thompson had heard that already. Did Chris leave? No. So thanks, Chris. Look forward to serving in that capacity as well. Had a water quality board meeting the state level, where appreciated all of the Spanish Fork attendants, even from Texas. Mayor and Seth were able to join us in that meeting, where it was one of the things I had not seen in the last 2 years as municipalities or sewer districts come forth asking for either grant money or loans. And Spanish Fork was awarded a $500,000 grant and $4.5 million loan at 1.12% for 20 years for our new sewer treatment facility that we're working on. And again, I've never seen it before, but I attribute all that to the good planning and Corey Pierce attending the meetings, coming to Salt Lake when we used to attend in person, and Chris Thompson meeting with Erica Gaddis, who is the director of the Water Quality Board and that division, rather. And so just really applaud Chris and Corey and that department. And we don't give enough accolades to the sewer treatment facility, but tonight, here's to you guys. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Councilman Argal.
Thank you, Mayor. I just attended the Spanish Fork Airport Board. Just want to express and let you know that these guys that serve on the airport board are watching out for our interests. They're aware of our airport. I'm pretty sure Chris is in touch with Chris Thompson with Chris Childs, because on a weekly basis we're getting requests for tie down for planes, for more hangars, and that's continuing on a daily basis. And our FBO down there is trying to build some more hangars so that they can get space for these planes. Our airport is growing. We're having more and more landing and off, and there are people interested in our airport just because of the situation that we're in, where we're at, and the way we serve the planes that come there. And the hangars are the ones that we got are full, and asked the board to consider the next row of hangars to start being built, because the ones that they're already building or under construction are now sold, so they're ready for the next ones to start, and they've already got people asking. So our airport is growing fast. Thank you.
Great. Council member back.
I think I want to start just telling Karen thank you. I have been on the Fiesta Days committee for the last 5 years with Karen, and I just remember my first year working with her and her wealth of knowledge for all the years past Fiesta Days. And she can remember things like this, and I thought, I'll never remember as much of anything as she knows. How will she ever be replaced? And it just comes down to it, she's irreplaceable, but she will be there, and we just thank you. All the people that have been able to work with you, Karen, are blessed, and thanks for your service. On Sunday night, the mayor and I don't know, maybe some of you were at the Christmas Box Angel Memorial. That is held every year at the Spanish Fork Cemetery, and it is December 6th at 7 p.m., and it's for all of those families who have lost a child. And I just want to thank Richard Davis and his family for being over that, being responsible to put together a program where people can gather and literally mourn with those that mourn and support one another and just feel a peace and a love at this time of year that's so difficult. Then last week, and I have a picture from Tim Daly called and invited us to go help them and their staff spend $15,000. And I love to shop for other people, so of course I was on board. Chad and I helped the Marine Corps and Tim Daly's staff gather toys for Tots. And this has never happened in this far south. So our Spanish Fork Walmart, we all just got carts for about, 45 minutes, Chad?
Yeah.
And just loaded up toys, and they just scanned them until we reached $15,000. And then the Marines would take these huge boxes of toys and put them out in their big vehicles, and they'll distribute them to those kids that are in need. So that was just a really fun event to gather those toys and be able to help others. And then just a shout out to our residents for being so grateful for our Shop Local vouchers. I mean, I'm sure you all, as I have received several texts and have seen a lot of gratitude on social media that our city stepped forward and sent that $75 to all of the residents' homes in Spanish Fork, and we're able to use that. So just a reminder that you have till the end of December to spend that. And then Nick has a video. If you've driven down Main Street in the past 2 weeks, you've noticed that there is a big missing spot, kind of like your front tooth is missing, it kind of feels like, right? Our library was torn down, and it will be cleaned up. Not the library will go there. The church, the old church next to City Hall. And just take a minute and watch this. You can continue watching the site getting cleaned up on Spanish Fork 16. But this will be cleaned up over the next couple months, and then in March, new construction will begin and will be completed in June of 2022. Mayor, do you have anything else to say about that? What did you do in that church?
I was a legend on the basketball
really?
court. So I'm sure they took a piece of the court and saved it for me, didn't they?
I'm sure they did.
I'm
yes.
sure they did, but and actually, my grandfather helped build that building. I've got a picture of him inside there working when they built that building, and so that was kind of a neat thing to be a part of that. That was our old stake center when I was a kid growing up, and spent a lot of, I would like to say a lot of hours going to meetings, but I think I spent more hours playing basketball there than I did anything else.
Mayor, we do have a few bricks left. Maybe you could use that as a memory for some of the shots that didn't.
Oh, wow. Wow, stinger.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
He says that the week after you did his evaluation.
Yeah.
So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Scobes.
Mayor, first I would also like to echo Councilmember Beck's comments. I've known Karen for over a decade now in service. Great friend and truly a great asset to the community in different capacities. And we love you, and we will miss you dearly, but also look forward to seeing you around town and with other events as we go through. So not a passing of any type, just a moving on of different responsibilities. So again, thank you so very, very much. Nothing else to add, Mayor. On Thursday, we have the Utah Lake Commission meeting. I'll be attending that. We did have a Fine Arts Committee meeting, but nothing to report for this body, at least nothing of decision. So that's all I have.
Great. Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Echo what's been said about Karen. Karen, you've been part of this city and Parks and Rec as long as I can remember being a little kid and umping and refereeing and playing sports in this city. So it is going to be odd not seeing you around everything that is Parks and Rec. I feel lucky that in my public service that's been a committee that the mayor's allowed me to sit on and get to know the process just that much better. As far as Parks and Rec, I say it a lot, but you know, if anybody ever puts their house up for sale in any community really, but especially in Spanish Fork, it's not that, hey, the toilets flush good, even though that's important, the sewer plant's important, and you know, there's good cops and there's good everything in the city, the essential services, but it really is the quality of life that sets you apart in your community, and the Parks and Rec here in Spanish Fork is just a huge part of that, and you've been a huge part of that department to make that happen. Basketball practices for my 8-year-old girl and 13-year-old boy this week. I'm sure you guys never had to contemplate, how are we going to do this in a pandemic? And all of a sudden, it's working. You've, you know, just publicly, thank you to you guys for making space available for kids to still participate in some form of activity that way. Kudos to the schools to try to figure it out. Kudos to your people that you send up there to remind us to socially distance and wear masks, try to keep safe as we can while we're doing that stuff. But we're gonna miss you. The time Amber and I got to spend on on Fiesta Days, you better took good notes, Stacy, because I would just say, ask Karen. I don't know. She knows from how we did it years ago. So you're going to get phone calls for that, I'm sure. And just appreciate your service and all you've done for the city. It won't be the same. The Chamber of Commerce, Stacy touched on this. Councilmember Beck touched on this. The businesses, just going around to a few businesses and talking to them about the voucher program. How that's been great for them. Again, and they weren't prepared for orders to clean and close down somewhat and everything else. So just a tough time. So kudos to again everybody that came up with that. The Chamber's participation in it to try to get the word out to businesses to participate and help facilitate that. I've heard from both sides of the residents that say, hey, this is a great addition to our Christmas here in town, and the business owners on the other side saying it's an addition to their Christmas, that they get a sale out of the deal. So good on both sides there, and appreciate the Chamber's partnership on that. Last, I've had some League of Cities and Towns board meetings regarding upcoming session on Capitol Hill, and everything from public safety to housing to everything in between. COVID obviously is on everybody's mind as well, but just in that aspect of service, the League of Cities and Towns is advocating and reaching out to all of our 249 cities and towns that are members to make sure they're aware of all the issues that are affecting them as municipalities, but their residents and the state as a whole. So I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity while we have one of the leaders of the state here with us. So I hope he doesn't take it out on me later. But Representative Gibson is here, and so if there's anybody that knows about the upcoming session and things, it would be him. So, Mayor, if you're okay, I'm going to invite him to take the next hour and a half and just teach us about
he could do that.
Would he do that? Representative Gibson is my representative, lives up in Mapleton, represents the east side of Spanish Fork here, east side of Highway 6. Can't say enough about him as a representative, the response that he is to the residents that have questions. I'll never forget his saying always that I remember is there's talkers and there's doers, and he encourages us to always be doers, and he's a good doer himself. So he just gets in, gets it done. But I heard today 78 bill files open just on public safety.
Oh, it's crazy.
You're going to be busy up there, so maybe just let our residents know when the session begins and how we can help you and communicate with you. You obviously serve as a private life too, important part of Spanish Fork too, and so you're kind of double trouble in Spanish Fork.
Well, this wasn't on my agenda to show up and speak today, but I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the great city leaders we have. Government really is best at its most local level, and you guys do it best both in Spanish Fork and the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns. And so that's where citizens typically have the most responses with you guys, and you do a great job. And I'm grateful to work here in Spanish Fork. Live in Mapleton, but I represent this area or a big portion of Spanish Fork as well. And so we're really, really glad to be able to do that. This session will be crazy. As you talked about law enforcement, we look at COVID and the many different things that have happened in our country, in our state, with riots and many different things. I will not opine on my opinions other than to say, do not see our police chief over there. Let him know that I fully support our police force, and both in the community. We were able to at least honor our police officers and first responders in the rodeo, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity that the rodeo did have to go on and to be able to, it was pretty moving. I've been to the rodeo a lot. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Texas, so rodeos are all over there, but the rodeo and what it means to the community and to South Utah County, not just in Spanish Fork, but we have lots of citizens attend, and so to be able to have the rodeo go on and to be able to have an opportunity to honor our police force and our police officers and both the sheriff and all of the local police officers or police forces and the surrounding communities was great. This legislative session will be a little bit different. We've had to cancel lots of our tours, and so lots of our young men and young women who come from the elementary schools and high schools who've had an opportunity to tour the Capitol during the legislative session will not happen for obvious reasons. I think you'll also see a more enhanced security measures that will go on in terms of checking people as they enter into the Capitol, which is something that we've not had to do. We live in a different world for various different reasons, and so lots of people wanting to express their displeasure, or I would say pleasure, but that usually doesn't happen too much, but lots of people wanting to express themselves in different manners, and I think public safety has changed, and it will change what will happen. Lots of law enforcement bills that will come up. We will be actually blessed this session, and it will have a little bit more revenue than anticipated. It's lots of different reasons for that, but I will say the legislative session starts January the 18th, which is the day after Martin Luther King. There was a constitutional amendment that was passed which allowed us to move session up a little bit earlier, and that will run through March 5th. And so there will be lots of things going on there. I fully anticipate we'll be looking at infrastructure projects. There'll be a few that will come up that will be discussed here. One of the ones that most people may or may not know about, and I know that the mayor and the council's been the biggest advocate for, is another off-ramp between Springville, 4th South, and Main Street in Spanish Fork, and what that looks like. That will actually be discussed and continue to, the funding is there. I fully anticipate what that project looks like will be possibly enhanced to make sure it looks at the growth that's really happening. That's a project that I think if we left it up to UDOT in and of itself, it would only be a certain size. But I think as we look at the growth in South Springville, in North Spanish Fork, and going east up towards the Mapleton area, that is something that will be of importance. Overall, I think the state is in good financial health. We've been able to maintain and do some good things. We'll be able to put additional money back into our rainy day funds, but there will be lots of COVID discussion going on and what that looks like. I also think medicinal marijuana will be another hot topic that will be discussed this year. We've had lots of interest in that, both nationally, but even within the state of Utah, that is something that will also continue to be discussed. And so then there are always those things that tend to take a life of their own that you don't know about. As you open a bill file, our colleagues have the ability to open any bill that they want. that they want to open on any topic, and we're not always privy to that. I am the majority leader, but it's one of the things that legislators can keep in private until they're ready to discuss that bill file. And so there may be things that come up. I'm going to be like, holy smokes, where did that come from? I never knew. And there will always be a host of those. And so I'm always open. To date, I just looked, I've returned over 11,451 emails since I've been in office from constituents. That's not globally. I get a lot more than that, but just constituent emails. And over 6,700 phone calls and text messages. I'm pretty open like a book and try to return those if needed. And I will tell you that Senator McKell now and Representative Burton and those other folks that have the Spanish Fork areas with me, and used to be Senator Henderson, who is now going to be our Lieutenant Governor. They're very responsive to citizens of Spanish Fork, and I think we've done a good job of trying to be responsive to you as a council, and hopefully you feel like those relationships have been reciprocal back and forth. And so anything that I can do for the council, please let me be able to do that. Just as if I may take a personal privilege, in my day job, I'm the CEO of the new Spanish Fork Hospital. We moved into that hospital about 3 weeks ago, meaning our administrative team. It started with 2 of us, and we're up to about 40 employees now, and we will grow to about 260 employees full-time. And so if you're looking for a job opportunity with Spanish Fork Hospital in the nursing realm or imaging or any of those clinical skills, please log on to the intermountain.org website and look at those jobs. There are tons of them posted. I know that we're interviewing for lots of those. There are lots of good men and women that live in this community that work in healthcare in different facilities that are looking for opportunities to work here close to home and serve the citizens of this community. And so that's happening. March 17th will be our ribbon cutting, with our first day to see a patient being April 5th. So just a few dates out there, but we've been busy getting that facility ready to serve our community. And it is always, when you build something new, you look at it and you go, I wish I would have whatever you would have wished, right? I look at the weeds in the community where we're at in some of the undeveloped areas, and I think 2.5 years ago, that's exactly what that looked like. And today, it's going to be a hospital that will serve our community very, very well. And I look forward to being able to do that. So with that, Mr. Councilman, Mr. Mayor, thanks for giving me a few minutes. It wasn't what I planned on. I didn't take an hour and a half. And I would comment that there are probably not enough bricks, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thanks for coming.
We appreciate Representative Gibson and his leadership up on the Hill, but appreciate his daytime job and his nighttime job. That's what it turns into for him, and I don't know when he sleeps, because he works a lot in both aspects. So we appreciate your collaboration with the league, but also with the city on all the important work you do up there. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Obviously, you people didn't know my nickname was Automatic. You know, they just called me Otto every time I shot. I never took a shot I didn't like. So, see right there, Stacy? There's a picture of the church, and down below, that's my grandfather on the right in the dark, kneeling down. So there's proof. You know, I just wasn't telling you my grandfather helped build that, but there's proof.
Do you know what year that would have been?
Yes, I know.
Do you want to share the year with the rest of us?
I
or
don't
do you just
know.
want to keep it under wraps?
I think it was built in '62, if I'm not mistaken. Year pops out to me, but I'm not sure. But hey, there you go. All right, let's move on to Spanish Fork 101, 2700 North Interchange Area Vision.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This really wasn't planned, but before I introduce the crack team that's put what you'll see tonight together, I want to mention something about this project, which for communities to have a new interchange built, it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In fact, for a lot of places, that it doesn't happen that often. It's a great opportunity for the for not only Spanish Fork, but for the region. It doesn't get any better than this from a land use planning perspective, and this wasn't planned at all, that Representative Gibson would be here on the night that these folks would be with us to talk about this project. But I'm going to mention some things that I think the council understands. We are only talking about this opportunity and this critical improvement because Spanish Fork City has had the right legislative representation at the right time, and I would even say that we've been fortunate to benefit from the right legislative leadership at the right time. Understanding the conversations that we were having about this just a handful of years ago with UDOT and how dismal the prospects were that this interchange would happen, you know, in this era, and how unlikely it was. I think to call it a miracle is probably strong, but I will say that this does not happen often, and I'm not trying to lay it on overly thick, but that's the reality. And like we mentioned to Representative-elect Burton a little while ago, we're truly grateful. This is a really big deal, and we recognize the effort that went into it and appreciate that. And this project is all about trying to make the most of that investment, not only for Spanish Fork City, but I would also say for the region as a whole. And to that end, maybe just a few more comments before, again, I introduce the experts that have helped us with this. I don't get a whole lot of time necessarily to reflect, but in kind of thinking about where we are tonight with this and maybe what the area surrounding a new interchange will look like in a few years. You all can remember, I'm sure, what the green waste facility looked like not too long ago, and the area around that, where we had the little remote control airplane runway, you know, airport there, and how where today there's a Lowe's and a whole lot of other things in the area, just a few years ago there was nothing. And to go out there and to look at that area, there was nothing impressive about it, really. I mean, that was also, I would say, kind of dismal. Spanish Fork's been around for, I think, about 160 years. And really, that area has changed overnight, you know, relative to the lifespan of a city and the history of a community. And likewise, this interchange is not only going to bring about similar, you know, improvements and development and opportunity and lots of wonderful things, but it also is essential in making the development that's happened so far work into the future. And that's development that not only benefits Spanish Fork City, but truly an entire region. As we think about the commerce that happens there, we have some understanding as to, you know, the part of Utah that serves today, and it's a lot of geography. And having this interchange available to make traffic in the area continue to work well into the future, again, it's essential, and that benefits people that live well outside of Spanish Fork. Kind of like the interchange being a game changer, having a hospital in a region and that service, you know, in Spanish Fork likewise. You know, that exceeds our boundaries by a long ways. And I think that as a community, you know, we understand that there's a responsibility to make the most of the opportunities that this kind of an investment creates. And again, that's really what this project is about. So we came to learn just a few years ago that this project was a priority for the legislature. And we understand that 2024, it's going to be operational. We know that people are making investments in land around the interchange today. And this is an effort to make sure that the best land use decisions are made around or in proximity to the interchange going forward to, again, use that investment as best as we possibly can. So to that end, like I mentioned, we've consulted and hired with a crack team of professionals to analyze what might work around the interchange when it's built, to help kind of predict a little bit about what might fit, what might be feasible to have happen around the interchange. And maybe most importantly for me with this particular project, to really paint an aspirational vision of what the area could be. Kind of like I described earlier, the area around Walmart, Lowe's, theater, and so forth just a few years ago, it really didn't look like much. Today it's really different. And we have the same opportunity around the interchange to promote and to encourage incredible development that, again, I think will benefit not only Spanish Fork, but a whole region. So to that end, tonight you'll hear from Benj Becker with Zion's Public Finance, who has helped, I think, really pull back the curtain on some changes that are happening in the land use world relative to retail opportunities and different things like that. He's given me reason to look at things differently than I otherwise would have, and it hasn't always been easy for me to I guess, embrace the possibilities that exist relative to changes that we know are happening, and we appreciate the perspective that he's brought to the project. And then Christian Kirkham and Vern Kiesler with Parametrics, land use planning and engineering consulting group. They're responsible for, and I think, some of the more visionary aspects of what you'll see here. And there's one last thought before I turn the time over to them. Again, this is a vision. So to be clear, the pictures that you'll see tonight and ultimately the concept that it will give us to think about really is, I think, as much as anything, food for thought. But it's not just food for thought for you as the city council. Perhaps even more importantly, we hope that it causes property owners in the area, the real stakeholders, the people that really will ultimately be responsible to make a vision like this either happen or not, to give them a reason, hopefully maybe to rethink any plans that they have now, maybe to aim a little bit higher in terms of anticipating and planning for and again, making happen the kind of development that would occur around the interchange. And I think this is a great tool that we'll have as we move forward to work with those property owners to try to encourage the best end result around this critical improvement that we're so grateful for. So like usual, longer intro than I'd expected. Apologize for that. But with that said, Mr. Kiesler, are you going to lead out? Great. So I'll turn things over to Vern Kiesler.
Thanks, Dave. Members of the City Council and Mayor, it's great to be before you tonight. I really appreciated witnessing some of the recognition of your fine community residents. As a former resident of Spanish Fork, I will have to say that I've appreciated how you have honored the past and how you value the traditions and the culture of this community, and you're forward thinking as well. Whether it's pressurized irrigation when I lived here a number of years ago, or high-speed internet service, one of the first cities in the state to bring that to their residents. So pretty impressive. That's continuing as I sit here and see this stuff tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about 2700 North Interchange Vision Study. We're going to go through the study area, talk a little bit about that. It's both the east and west sides of I-15 at approximately 2700 North. It includes, of course, some of the more recognized land uses that are there right now is the Tim Daly Ford, who has been mentioned tonight, as well as the Lowe's and the property north of the new hospital. Dave also asked that we include and expand the study area, and so the yellow was the original area, and we added the pink as well because of some changes in rail service in the future. Just to let you know, we started this study in June, and it was with a kickoff meeting. We formed a stakeholders group that met 3 times, We had very good participation from the stakeholders group for the first and third meetings, and those meetings were well attended by many of the property owners. We held as 3 meetings as we stated, and we went before the Planning Commission last month in November, and then the City Council in December. So we hope to wrap up the study this month. The stakeholder feedback, one of the first things that we did was to survey the property owners. And again, I appreciate what Dave says. We're not telling anybody what to do with their property, but we're making suggestions of consideration for future land uses than what exists now that would complement some of the development that already exists and then provided much needed residential development in the future. So we surveyed the respondents, and I won't go over each question here, but you can see that whether they're a property owner or a representative of the property that responded. How long have you owned your property? Take a look at that, 15 plus years. Many of the property owners have owned it for a long time. Do you plan to develop it yourself or have someone else do it? These are all important questions that we learn from as we talk to the stakeholders. Where do you plan to develop your or when do you plan to develop your property? And this was one of the most telling, 0 to 4 years, right away, okay? And then what future land uses would you consider? And of course, a lot of people like their highest and best use. In this case, many of them put commercial. So ideas for development in the area from the survey respondents, which are the stakeholders and property owners, diverse commercial with transitional zoning to complement the businesses. We want clean commercial, maybe light industrial, service station, restaurants, coordinated development guided by a master plan, and then one property owner responded, we really want warehousing with strategic commercial there. Other survey comments said other businesses plan to expand that are already located there. One family has decided to participate in the future of the planning area. They came to our meetings and participated. It was great. And then others were just a little bit concerned about what changes would actually come up. So what we're going to do is tag team this. We're going to turn it over to Ben Becker with Zion's Public Finance, and then we'll let him talk about the economics and some interesting statistics. Then we'll turn it over to Christian and then back over to me, and we're trying to squeeze this in from a 30-minute presentation down to 15, okay?
Thanks, Vern. Thanks, Mayor and City Council. It's great to be here. I'm Ben Becker and very happy to represent the public finance team of Zion's Bank and happy to be working with Parametrics. They've been great and your city's been fantastic to work with. Part of what, as Dave was talking about this project, from our perspective was to really look at highest and best use of these properties. And we look at really that from 3 perspectives. One is which creates the highest and best use to the land, so the greatest return to the land. That's from a property owner perspective. 2, highest and best use from a city perspective, from a city finances, what creates the greatest fiscal impacts, which uses are potentially the greatest strain on resources. And then the third highest and best use is highest and best use to the community. That may not create the greatest return to the land or to the city, but ultimately has quality of life characteristics where it cuts down on commute times or creates more open space. So we wanted to look at all those, and we obviously did this in the middle of COVID. So understanding market conditions was unique, and making sure that what we were projecting for uses for the site was not overly influenced by a unique market with COVID, but understanding what trends COVID has placed, which of those may continue in the future. So I'll just skip forward through this, just looking at flex office space, warehouse apartments, which property types are doing well. We went pretty in detail of comparison cities, what's happening in Utah, how are things changing because of the pandemic, and what was doing well before it, and what we anticipate doing well afterwards. A lot of things doing fairly poorly. As you can imagine, retail has had a significant hit. People are spending great sums of money, and retail sales are up significantly in some areas. As we told the Planning Commission, as you're well aware, your In-N-Out Burger is one of those retailers that is doing very, very well. They've figured out the model, and places like Chick-fil-A have figured out the model, and others have not. And they've suffered, and nationally we're expected to close 100,000 stores next year nationally, and that'll have quite a hit on the overall retail market. Some restaurants and eateries have done really well, as I said, others have suffered. Hotels have really suffered, particularly in the summer months. The downtown Salt Lake City occupancy rate was between 10 and 20% for the summer. And typically they're in the range of 70 to 75%, and once you get beyond 75%, you consider building new hotels. Now, your recent new hotel addition is within a category of these traveler mid-range hotels that has rebounded very well, and they're more in the range now of 50 to 70% occupancy, so that's good to see that coming back a little bit. We're still waiting to see some significant movement in office. We know that from a commercial lending standpoint, new office construction has significantly slowed down. We anticipate a lot of sublease space coming onto the market in 2021, particularly for Class B and B+ offerings. So that's going to have that will have an influence on all of the new construction and existing inventory. Banks and lenders are looking at much stronger now pre-lease commitments and credit worthiness of tenants. There's a building specifically in downtown that was 100% pre-leased. It's a 20-story office building that's going up right now before the pandemic. Or not pre-leased, but letters of commitment. And all of those fell through. So fortunately, that owner has a little bit different financial situation than most owners and is able to handle it well. But that's a concern going forward. And then affordable housing is a major issue. We continue to see price increases for housing with demand from other states, people coming in from other states to live in Utah. Housing prices have shot upward, and construction costs. Just go check. The last time you probably bought a 2x4, well, not some of you, I mean, it used to be $2 and now it's $7. So that's influencing your housing prices. And then here we're going to go right to Christian to talk about some of this market analysis, how it led us to understanding of what could be absorbed and what would be those impacts to the city and to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Benj, and good evening, Council. It's great to be with you all tonight. My name is Christian Kirkham. I'm a planner with Parametrics. And so my role on this project was really to take the data, the survey responses, the feedback that we received from city staff and from the public, and to start to create visually some land use scenarios of what this area could potentially look like in the future. And so our first exercise was, because of 2020, this is a unique year, we wanted to look at pre-COVID market conditions and post-COVID market conditions to kind of gauge the near-term impact of the pandemic and see, visually, okay, where we might have anticipated a couple of more hotels. Maybe in the near term, we would have to scale that back a little bit in our projections. So here you see scenario one, pre-COVID. I can't read that one, but we had about 1.2 million square feet of both commercial, hotel, and a little bit of residential land uses that we kind of plopped down in this area. And this is based off of the data that Benj provided of what could feasibly be absorbed around this interchange pre-COVID and normal market conditions. And so impact of hotels and commercial lease, the whole scenario changing has reduced our projection by about 200,000 square feet of gross leasable floor area. Notably, we had two or three hotels that gets reduced down to one, and then a cutback in some of that commercial space. And what you see here, all these blocks and these typical, basically building blocks that we created, we're just trying to visualize, okay, square footage, are we going to even fill up this space in the near term? And then we took that one step further into what, in my mind, is the more exciting part of the visionary study, is when we start to look further than just the near 0 to 5 years, and start to project out, you know, in a scenario where the interchange is built and markets have obviously shifted, and we start to look at the entire build out of this area and take into consideration the feedback that we were hearing from the property owners and direction from city staff. And then we start to place the different land uses in both of these east and west study areas. And so I apologize, I didn't know that our screens would be this far away. If you are having trouble reading this, I'll just go through on the west side. So north is kind of facing up to the left, and you've got the interchange in the middle. The west side, near the interchange, that's where the current Tim Daly Ford dealership is located. And then those larger box buildings are the Spanish Springs LLC development under Comina Group. They are currently in the process of constructing some industrial warehousing there, and that's what those large structures are. And then there are several other commercial land uses that we placed in this area based on feedback that we received, you know, the interest in commercial and also just the overall land uses in the west side are more conducive for commercial and industrial. It's located right next to your airport, and it's got great access to Main Street and that kind of commercial-based traffic. There's opportunities for what we're calling flex office, which is kind of a combination of industrial and commercial, maybe a light manufacturing facility with an office in the front. That seems to be very viable right now. And then some typical strip retail and hotel we have shown in the corner right next to I-15 where you get the best visibility for freeway traffic. Then moving over to the east side, south of 2700 North, we explored different residential uses. You've got several neighborhoods in neighboring Springville to the north, and then to the south you've got some hospital, medical type uses, and just the entire area is a little bit more suited for residential, and we showed a variety of different residential types that could be integrated, especially as the rail is realigned. There's opportunities for basically a whole new community could be placed here with all of the supporting structures. You know, church meeting houses, open space, little corner shops. There's plenty of room here for an entire community. So here's a few perspectives. I'm a very visual person. I like to draw things out. And keep in mind, like Dave mentioned at the beginning, these are all very conceptual. This is one of what could be 1,000 different scenarios. But we wanted to give you something to kind of mull about, and maybe it could be a springboard for future discussions, especially with the property owners, of what could be there. And so this is looking southbound I-15 on what would be the new interchange. And you can see there's great visibility. Those two main buildings in the front could be hotels. And then this is looking southeast towards Tim Daly Ford. And in this scenario, we basically just expanded the current dealership. This could be something much, much larger than what currently is, with great freeway access, visibility, and could become a full-fledged auto mall. And then you've got the strip retail and a few restaurants shown on the corner, and office building in the back. This is also looking southeast, pulled back a little bit just to show that flex office. Main Street is on the right-hand side, and so that's looking south on Main Street. And you've got I-15 further to on your left. Yeah, more warehousing. The airport was mentioned tonight. There's opportunities here for more hangar space or more storage space for all the activity that you're seeing. Now, this is looking southwest. 2700 North is kind of in that bottom right corner. With the future expansion of 2700 North, I believe it's going to 5 lanes in the future. Is that right, Vern? 5 lanes with a center turning lane. There's going to be a lot more traffic, obviously, with an interchange that brings more traffic into the area. So we showed some commercial on 2700 North, which then tapers into the residential neighborhood. So you don't have houses right on that busy street. It's buffered. And then, again, we wanted to show a variety of housing types, everything from single family to twin homes, townhomes, all the way up to apartment buildings. You know, self-sustaining community, as you all know, needs a variety of housing types. Not everyone wants to live in the exact same housing type. And so having, you know, all housing types to choose from would be really great. So I-15 is in the bottom left corner, and this is looking northeast. And we have shown some more housing kind of adjacent to I-15 in this area between the railroad tracks. It's a little hard to see, but the railroad kind of comes to a point at 2700 North. And the problem with, well, the challenge here is access, really, for commercial. I know commercial really likes that freeway visibility, but here, just getting access all the way from that interchange becomes a challenge. So in this scenario, we showed it as, and of course the 2 railroads make access challenges. So we showed residential in this scenario with more of the commercial and industrial on the other side of the railroad tracks, where there's already some development occurring near the hospital. So if you could press play, I've got a little video fly through. Just to kind of, this is a 2-minute fly through, just kind of an overview of everything we're showing. I have some cars, you know, animated, you know, driving through, just to get a sense of the scale and how things are accessed. This is looking at those hotels again. And the dealership with some of the strip retail. And there will likely need to be new signals, traffic signals, at each of those major intersections. That is the Spanish Springs LLC development. Again, with the flex office in the foreground, lots of opportunity here for commercial and industrial. There you see the new, so Front Runner will eventually come down here, and there will need to be a grade separated crossing. And then that is the east side part of the study area. And with this bird's eye perspective, you can kind of get a sense of, you know, how the different roads can be laid out, how it can tie into the Canyon Parkway. And just showing a variety of housing opportunities, some single family. We also brought up there's an opportunity for an assisted living facility. Just looking at the overall trends and different populations and demographics, there's a need for assisted living facilities, and the impact on traffic is much less for those types of developments. Some of the apartments and townhomes. There will need to be at least 2 rail crossings. And that's it. If you could go on to them. Oh, here. No, that's going to play again. There. So that's I'll go back. So here's a plan view, just overall, again, perspective on everything. I'm not going to spend much more time on this. Be happy to answer any questions about the vision we put together. And again, I just wanted to reiterate that we're just trying to start a conversation, really, with developers and with property owners When it comes down to the very specific, like, oh, I don't like the way that that road intersects, that's all, can be modified as development occurs. But we hope that this is helpful to you as you start to, imagine, those vacant lands where there once were weeds and now can be something new, something great for your community. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Vern.
Thank you, Christian and Benj. And then just going to turn it back over to Dave here in just a second. Some of our recommendations and conclusions are that you might want to take a look at the general plan for this area to make sure that we can take a look at the correct zoning that might accommodate some of these land use scenarios that we've received feedback from the stakeholders and property owners. Be aware of future annexations, which is in your annexation declaration policy. And railroad is going to be a big issue. Railroad doesn't like to give out railroad crossings, right? Especially when they're at grade. And so maintaining the one that you have on Larson Lane, what's the lane? Williams Lane. Yeah, I used to live by Larson Elementary. Williams Lane. And then make sure that we coordinate with the neighboring city to the north about a future rail grade crossing there as well. And then share this vision with the stakeholders. I mean, we have already done that. There's a lot of things they like about it, and I believe that taking a look and getting your planning commission to re-examine the general plan and the zoning and bring those recommendations before you will be of huge benefit for developing this land in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave unless there's any comments or questions. Okay, thanks.
Well, to Benj, Vern, and Christian, thank you. This is the product that I had hoped that we would get from them, through their effort. But at the same time, this is just the beginning. I mean, I could go on and on about where we're at really with things. But just for example, I'll say this: the mayor really is a great emissary for the city. So having this as a tool that perhaps the mayor and some of us on staff can take to meet with some of the key property owners in the area to talk about their plans and how maybe we can help bring about some of the things that we see here that we think particularly would be good for the community and again, the region and that sort of a thing. This is a tool that I think will serve a lot of different purposes going forward. And again, I appreciate the work that these folks have done. Once again, like Vern said, I'd ask you guys maybe to throw any questions at us that you might have right now, but I'll say as well that what you saw tonight is a small part of all of the information that's available relative to this project. And if any of you guys want to do a deeper dive, or any residents for that matter, at any point in time, just reach out to us as staff. We'd be happy to sit down and go through things. For now, I'll leave it at that unless you guys have anything for us.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. It kind of gives us an idea of what the potential is out there, and as soon as Representative Gibson gets that all built for us, and we're ready to go. So that'd be great. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, let's move over to consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
Second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing, ordinance Z19-20, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Vista View zone change.
Let's go slides first. So just a quick minute to get converted over here. I think the council will remember the conversation that was had a few months ago relative to a general plan amendment that you approved that really paved the way for this first project that we'll talk about tonight, the Vista View condominium project. I don't have a laser pointer with me, so I'll speak in this regard. May I? Even better. Okay. So I'll give you that back. I'll go with this. If I remember right, I kind of struggle with this one. We'll see if I can get it right. The subject property that we're talking about tonight includes There we go. Yeah, I do struggle with this. It includes this area here. So this map is the land use map of the general plan. And this orange color is indicative of a high-density residential designation. Now, I guess I should start with this, just by way of some points of reference. This is the neighborhood Walmart right there. There's a different commercial development that's under construction to the north of that. And this is the Spanish Fork Parkway, US Highway 6 intersection right there. So there's that, just by way of kind of the lay of the land generally. This, again, represents the change that the council made just a few months ago to identify this area as being appropriate for high-density residential development, and a portion of the same property to the north as commercial. That's the red. So we're talking about altogether this area here, but the specific development proposal that's before the council tonight only includes the residential part of the property and part of that project. It's about 15 acres altogether, actually closer to 16 acres altogether. And the proposal, which is consistent with this map, I think the next map is a zoning map. Nick, if hit the white one. Okay, so this is the current zoning of the property. You'll remember there was some discussion about this with the general plan amendment. Right now, the zoning on the southern part of the property is residential 3. So for a long time, some higher density residential development had been anticipated in the area as kind of a transition from the single family homes to the south to some kind of commercial development to the north. This urban village commercial zone is what the remainder of the property currently is zoned. It's a unique zone, and frankly, I think it's so unique with some of its provisions that that's the reason that we haven't yet seen a development in Spanish Fork happen within that particular zoning district. So again, existing zoning, the proposed zoning then is represented with this image here. The brown, that's residential 4. That zone allows for the highest density that's currently permissible in Spanish Fork, up to 20 units per acre. There's one other project that's been approved with that zoning. It's the Ridgeline Apartments that are on the corner of State Road 51 and Spanish Fork Parkway, over not too far from Lowe's and Walmart and such. But then, again, consistent with the general plan, the northern part of the property is proposed to be zoned commercial 2. So there are 2 parts of the proposal that's before you tonight. I would say the first one is the proposed zone change, and this indeed is the representation of what's proposed, that combination of residential 4 and commercial 2 zoning. To get into the details of the project, this is frankly quite consistent with what was proposed, just in very conceptual ways with the general plan amendment that was reviewed. There's one, I think, very noteworthy change that's been made from what we discussed then and from what the applicant was proposing. And I know that at some point in time tonight I'm going to sound like a cheerleader for the project, and I don't intend to do that, but frankly, I do very much so appreciate that the applicant has gone with his proposal from what originally would have been relatively close, I think, to 20 units to the acre, which was achieved in part by having some 4-story structures in the project, to now having a proposed density that's less than 15 homes to the acre by limiting the height of the buildings to 3 stories, all of them in the development. That was a suggestion that we had made as staff, and to some degree the Planning Commission agreed with that, and that was discussed in your meeting as well. And frankly, I think that's an important thing for the neighborhood, and will add some value to the at least the individual homes in the project and the neighborhood over time, and we appreciate that change. That being said, that's not necessarily maybe the best image to use to try to describe what we're talking about. So I'm going to maybe skip to that. The project will require some very significant road improvements. And frankly, I think that is one very beneficial aspect of this happening as well. Being able to connect 920 South, this roadway here. So this image has north to the left of us. The neighborhood Walmart is here. This is 920 South, a road that runs south of neighborhood Walmart between that development and the neighborhood to the south, and currently it terminates approximately right here. With this development, that roadway will be connected into Canyon Road, and likewise, 2300 East, which is where the Canyon Road connection will occur, will connect in with, I think it's 700 or maybe 750 South to the north. Those connections will be used. I think they will be valued by everybody in the area. It will provide alternate routes that will provide, I think, some very useful congestion relief to intersections like the Spanish Fork Parkway, US Highway 6 intersection, for example, and in different ways also some intersections along Canyon Road. That investment and the investment that the applicant will have to make to pay his part of that is significant. And but for a project like this, those connections would not be made, for a number of years into the future. So again, if I sound like a cheerleader, it's because there are improvements like that that will come with this project that I definitely think will be good for the area as a whole. And to try to get maybe to some of the more interesting things as we look at that image from the plan view perspective, that is from above looking down. You see lots of big rectangular blocks. In fact, we were looking at this with Chris Thompson. Chris, I can't remember if that was today or yesterday. They all blur together. That was today, I guess. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I understand you said something to that effect that, from that plan view perspective, you could be concerned about what this is going to look like with big buildings, long plains. It could really look monotonous and be ugly if the architecture isn't right. And this is one particular style of architecture, and that's somewhat subjective in terms of what people may or may not like. Frankly, I think the particular style that the applicant, Mr. Morgan, has selected here meshes very, very well with some of the other, kind of contemporary development that we've seen in the area. The townhomes on the east side of 2550 East, even something like the city's fire station, some single-family homes that'll be built around the fire station and so forth. But perhaps most importantly for me, with buildings of this size, it's important to have the type of architectural interest that we see here. Lots of changes of plane, we would say, with things like the balconies. You see the roof line there, anything but flat. Very interesting, I think, perspectives, and we'll see more of that in a second. So we do require garages. We require one garage for at least every sixth home. I'm sorry, that's not the right way to say it. For at least 60, say it the right way, I guess. Our ordinance requires that 60% of the units in the project have access to a garage. So if there are 100 homes, the developer has to provide 60 garages. This applicant meets that requirement, and they do it in a way that's similar to how the requirement was met with the Outlook project in Springville, where the garages are kind of tucked away on the back sides of buildings to where they're not a predominant feature in the architecture. They're attached to structures so that at least some of the homeowners there, and I'll stress this is a condominium project where these homes will be for sale and not for rent, but at least some of the ground floor homeowners, and I think maybe even some folks on upper levels will have direct access from their homes to a garage. That may sound like a simple thing, but given what I think contemporary home buyers expect and what contemporary home buyers like to have, that becomes an asset for this project that really helps it appreciate and value, not only for the project, but for the community over time as people have a better experience living there, live there longer, and so forth. And again, this particular perspective, again, I think represents well just how interesting the architecture would be from one level to another. Clubhouse, this would be constructed with the third phase of the project along with a splash pad behind it. Again, not a plain building, and an important amenity for a project of this size, 176 units. That's probably on the lower end of a threshold to where you have enough homeowners to pay for an amenity like this. And I think particularly for that reason, we appreciate the applicant including it. And again, I think it will certainly add value to the project over time. That's just a plan view perspective of the area that the clubhouse would be located in, with the splash pad behind it, and essentially kind of a central park to the development located in the middle of the southern part of the project there. Again, a little bit more open space on the north side of the project. So here, the commercial development is just off the image to the right. Sorry, the commercial development is just off the image to the upper side of it. We talk a lot about pickleball courts because Seth is a part of our development review committee and he brings it up. So likely be that kind of a facility built in the middle of this space here. And again, just another strength, I think. We spend a lot of time on playgrounds, but likewise they're included. And can you help me back up? Just even maybe to go back to maybe that overall view of the project. So this is a significant project. I appreciate the council letting me take that much time to kind of describe it. And again, at the risk of sounding like a cheerleader for the development, this is a great location for this type of project. Having such proximity to something like a grocery store, being directly adjacent to roads like 920 South and 2300 East, with what in the future will be great access to US Highway 6, not at the 2550 East, I should say Spanish Fork Parkway intersection, but at a new US Highway 6 intersection that'll be built to the west of this project. Really the only thing that is missing here is access to transit. And in all candor, I think sooner than later, we'll be talking with UDOT about some type of we'll be talking with UTA about some type of a route that would follow Spanish Fork Parkway. I think that's a very logical thing to expect when we have the connection over the railroad tracks, and that ties into Canyon Creek essentially. Again, it's consistent with the general plan, and given the specifics of this development proposal, it's really easy, I think, for staff to recommend that it be approved. The motion that Angie's helped us put in board docs for you is indeed our recommendation. The only thing that I'd maybe suggest that you consider adding to that on the approval of the preliminary plat are the conditions that we have spelled out in the staff report. We have a few more images of the architecture that we can show in the applicants here. I'm sure he might have some things to add, but I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions that you have.
We might pass over to the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this will be a public hearing, so I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're in public hearing. Anyone that would like to come and address the mayor of the council on this, come up to the mic, state your name, and you got 3 minutes.
My name is Bill Hammond, and I live in Hunter's Crossing, which is right adjacent to what we call small mart to differentiate between big mart. My biggest concern is I'm a semi-truck driver. I drive singles, doubles, triples, single axle, twin screws. I drive Rocky Mountain doubles. That's double 53-footers. And I'm telling you, just looking at the traffic that currently exists delivering to Walmart, we already are driving over that roundabout with the traffic that's there. That roundabout needs to be greater in size than 2 lanes to get around there comfortably. I can't tell you how many times cars have come so close to being crushed because they don't realize what that semi's doing. So in this planning and development that you have, where you've got that lane that currently exists off of 2500 South, and it comes down behind the housing developments where we live in Hunter's Crossing, you're going to extend that, and you're going to bring it to that roundabout, and you're going to try and get out onto Canyon Road. Now, if you're delivering at Walmart or any of the businesses that are growing in up there, you don't have room to get around that. Residential, cars, pickups, small box trucks, yes. But if you drive for Nicholas, you drive for Cisco, and you're pulling a small pup 28-footer or even a 48 or a 53-foot trailer, you can't get around that comfortably without getting up onto the curbing of the roundabout. So as you do your planning, you need to make sure that you take time to look at that, measure the dimensions. Let somebody who drives a semi get out and drive around a roundabout for you, like the one on 4th or the one up there by Small Mart, and show you what's going on and what happens with the traffic. It's highly congested there, and you're going to put more congestion in off of there and onto Canyon Road. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a semi pull out of Walmart where you back in and deliver. He's going to turn right because there's traffic coming down that way. He's going to go to that roundabout, and he's going to try and get around that roundabout and get out onto Canyon Road. He's going to crush somebody. You've got to have a lot of space in there to do it. I don't know if you're planning that. I don't see that by the look at the lane, but somebody's going to get crushed with a semi. It happens all the time in these roundabouts. So please give that some consideration. When Small Mart went in, I worked with Seth to make sure that we had high enough fences along the back. A semi-truck tractor lights are 36 inches off the ground. So if you're up 36 inches and you back down in there, your headlights go right into somebody's second-story home. Seth agreed. We put an 8-foot fence along there. I would recommend the same thing all the way down that lane behind those homes, because if you have something smaller than that, you're going to have the semi beaming, and they go through there at night to make their deliveries. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is John Russell. I live in Hunter's Crossing. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that the wall, the masonry retaining wall along there would continue on and be completed as part of this project. I want to make sure that, you know, the Hunter's Crossing is going to be left high and dry when all this construction starts happening and all the dust starts flying, or when it's all said and done, that retaining wall is in place. And so if you could please address that and give some feedback on what the plan is for that retaining wall, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved. Second.
A motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Dave, you want to address that?
I'm going to maybe ask for some help on the wall. We have talked about it, so I'll leave it at that. And then also Mr. Perrins brought up a question, a great one. It's been discussed on other projects. that Mr. Morgan, the applicant, I know is prepared to answer relative to restrictions that will exist on how many homes in the project can be rented versus owner occupied. So when, I don't know who wants to go first, but. Go ahead.
So I'll talk to the rental capacity. It's been, oh, Brad Morgan. I'm the developer of the Vista View project. Thank you. And it's been brought up, if it's apartments or condos, it is condos, it is a for sale product in there. It's been brought up how many units are going to be rentals, the whole thing going to be rented out. We've discussed, I think we discussed in the general plan amendment, so we'll kind of go over it again. You have to stay within certain ratios of rentals to keep financing available for a project. 50% is the number for FHA. We typically stay less than that, in the 40 to 45 range. It's in our bylaws. Rentals have to get approved in writing when they submit a contract for purchase, or after this project's done and their lender submits a packet to the homeowners association, what their intent is to rent or to owner occupy. They have to put that in writing, and then they'll have to get that approved either from the homeowner association after we move out or during the process. So that helps to keep it lower. The reason we stay under the 50% is you can't, if someone gets deployed, you can't force them to not rent. They have to be allowed to rent. So if we keep around 45%, 5% of our people get deployed or something, that keeps us within reason on our project. Obviously, it's very important to us to keep financing options available so people can buy units. Once they become a non-warrantable product, worst case scenario, it's cash purchases, but usually it goes to about a 25% down, which is really difficult for first-time home buyers. So we're very cognizant of that, watch that very closely. So that's kind of the overarching on rentals and what's going on there. On as far as traffic through to talk to the semi-truck concerns here, I personally would feel if they're coming out the road that divides our project, they're probably going to go out to Canyon Road and over. I don't think that they would fight the roundabout, double roundabout, when they could go to Canyon Road and out. I'm sure that's the way traffic would go there. I think this roundabout is going to be much flatter than the roundabout that's up by Walmart because of the incline that they have going into that. So as far as traffic, lights and stuff, I think we'll have less of that at this roundabout than the upper roundabout. And then we have discussed the wall. We talked about it in Planning Commission a little bit, and it will be continued down and around. So the residents will have that. I think that's where we end up settling on that. So I think those are public questions, and just here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council?
I just don't know if we've addressed your concerns on the roundabout yet, but will Chris address that? Okay. Thanks, Brad.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
First of all, on the 8-foot wall, that is what is planned to continue what we have there, so that's a good comment. Also on the semi-truck driving, I feel like that's a good comment as well. I personally would like to take you up on that offer and drive with you in a semi-trailer with the tractor and go through that and see how those work. Ironically, the reason why we go to roundabouts isn't necessarily because of the continuous flow or some of the traffic benefits of it. The main reason we've gone to roundabouts is for safety issues. They have been proven to be much safer than a signalized intersection where you typically have T-bone type accidents, rear end accidents, and head-on type accidents. On a roundabout, you only have traffic coming from one direction between 11 and 17 miles an hour. The only type of accidents you have in a roundabout is a low-speed glancing blow accident where generally no one is ever injured. And so they do flow well. They handle traffic well. Probably the weak point is for large semis and the like, doing a U-turn or a left turn through them. That's challenging. Typically, they're designed with an apron. I think that's what you talked about going up onto. That's actually there for the larger semis to go up on when they have to go through there, but we're typically, that is a small amount of the traffic going through the roundabout. The safety benefits, on the other hand, really kind of win the day there. But I would like to take someone up on that. I've driven on some of the city tractor trailer type vehicles through, but I would like to go with you if you would be willing, if you want to contact me and do that, and maybe we can make some improvements there. Any questions on that?
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions?
So, a couple of comments. First of all, Bishop's, what's his name next to you? Behind you? Yeah.
Bill?
Bill, I took an engineer for a ride. I've been a truck driver since I was 14. I took one of his engineers for a long ride. He'd never been in a truck before. The first thing he said to me was the roundabout that he said, well, we have this on computer and it flows really well with trucks. But after he rode with me with a truck and a trailer, he kind of got his eyes opened a little bit to see what it takes to get a truck through them roundabouts and stuff. And Chris, anytime, I'll take you anytime in a brand new Kenworth and a nice trailer. But anyway, some of those concerns have always been, I've had questions because they need to be, but especially because this town is still developing and there's so many trucks that are still going through them. You talk about the doubles and the double 50 or 48 foot trailers. That is that's a kind of a rare, but there is a lot of them running. Sunrock has a lot of them that run, that are those double trailers, and it takes a lot to get them through there. Even some, I've watched two on 8th North and Highway 51 stall because they couldn't get through there. They had to do some maneuvering, stopping traffic in order to get through there. But yeah, that is a concern. One of the reasons, and thank you for your concerns, and Chris, I'd be glad to take you anytime. One of the reasons that, so when we talked about this previously and we approved this to go forward with this, that I was in favor of it was two reasons. Was number one, the roads. Spanish Fork City doesn't build the roads. The developers build the roads and then we maintain them, and we so desperately need an out, and they've talked about this, to get out to that Highway 6 instead of the two that we have is 2300 East or 2550 East, which is Spanish Fork Parkway, or 1150 East is for the entire south part of Spanish Fork. We need another route on that highway. This starts that process. The other thing is that urban village. I've watched that over the years from where I work. I've watched several of those start up, and they are where they build the businesses in the bottom and the residents in the top. And here a little while ago, took a little drive. There's some projects that are 20 years old, and there's still no businesses, and I've always worried about that would end up being the case. And that was one of the reasons I agreed to it and felt it was a good project, is because it did away with that. Because I've seen that happen, and not just in Utah County. There's still some in Provo and Orem that are still not developed, that are 20 years old. The businesses, the residents seem to move in and take the apartments, but they don't the other. But changing this from that urban village to these apartments, I think was a good thing for us as a city to do. And
Walmart trucks come in with a 53-footer and a sleeper, and I've watched them every single time they've come out. Every one I've seen, they come out, they take up all two lanes, and they still have the rear axles when they make that turn. They head out towards the other townhomes, and they get out as far as they can and turn. So they're taking those lanes up, and the rear axles still go over the edge of that curve.
yeah, and like
Myself have come through there with a twin screw, a day cab, and a 53-footer, and tried to make that turn, and you can't make that turn and stay in a single lane.
Yeah,
it's
right.
virtually impossible because you don't have the turning radius.
Well, and
you go out and you capture the other lanes. Well, the problem that you run into is people coming into that roundabout, they think they own the roundabout, and you're
and we don't want anybody hurt. Unless Chris mentioned, that's why that is there, so that it takes up some of them bigger, larger trucks as they move around there, and we hope to do that safe. But anyway, thank you for your comments. Thanks,
Any other
Mayor.
questions?
My question, just really quick, Dave, maybe something for you, is the commercial end of this. Is this the only way that road on the west side, I think? Is that how the commercial space closer to Highway 6 is going to be accessed, or is there a road coming from the east side too? You know, so if you panned out one more thing to the zoning area.
Yeah, we can look at that. Actually, let me speak to that last image though really quickly. I don't know if this answers your question, Councilman, but the neighborhood Walmart building is approximately right here, if you will. And this is a public street. So this public street will tie into the parking lot of the development that's just north of the neighborhood Walmart.
All right.
A really, really important connection. So these residents won't have to add to the congestion that we have by going any further in any other direction to get over to that development than via that route. And even, I mean, geez, I'm gonna maybe throw out a rough guess, but you're maybe 800 feet from here to the front door of the Walmart if you walk all the way around. So again, I think that's part of the beauty just of the land use kind of arrangement that ends up being here. And in addition to this public street, it certainly is possible that further to the north there would be another just driveway connection between the commercial part of this project and the project to the east, but that's probably a little bit less certain, I'd say, at this point.
You get it straight east on that road, and that's in between the Walmart and the gas station, the Walmart gas pumps there.
Yeah, actually, this doesn't line up perfectly with that road, if I understand it right. That actually comes in a little bit further to the south.
Okay.
But by making a right-hand turn and a left-hand turn.
Okay.
Did I understand what you're asking there
Yep.
correctly? Okay.
It runs into where the Del Taco is.
Yeah, exactly. Into that parking lot, essentially.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick comment. With this being a public hearing, I just want to thank Bill for coming, because otherwise things like roundabouts would never even come to my attention. So public input is super important here, and I hope we can address that. And I really appreciate the roads being developed over there. I live on the east side of town and would access that often, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Brad. And then it's good to come here and hear that you made the concessions from 4 stories to 3 and from 20 units per the acre to 15. So those were some positive things coming here tonight and hearing that, so thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I will propose or make a motion that we approve the proposed zone change and preliminary plat approval for property located at 2350 East, 750 South, including approximately, do you want me to read this whole thing?
Well, you can read the proposal they have in the...
The proposed zone change would change the zoning from CUV to R3 to C2 and R4. The proposed development is master plan development containing 176 condominium homes.
Got a motion by Councilman Beck.
Second.
Second by Councilman Argal. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
Mayor, can we, Dave asked that we include the conditions as well?
Yeah. You okay with that, including?
On your
Yeah,
motion.
including the fence
Including
condition.
the conditions.
The 6 conditions listed
The
on
6
there.
conditions from
planning
the
board
planning
put.
commission.
Maybe I am not.
That's not on there. Dave just mentioned it in his comments.
So I just need to say, and approving the 6
Right.
conditions from the planning board, okay?
So you're good with that? You're good with that on your second?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's good with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Mention that to us before we do that vote. That might help. Okay, ordinance A20-03, annexing property known as the Thomas Farm annexation.
Once again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The subject property is outlined, is shaded in that yellow hue on this image. It's adjacent to the west of an annexation that was approved a couple of years ago, the Dak Swinson annexation. I don't know if you remember David Cloward presenting that and being the applicant on that proposal. It's a little bit hard to make out the city boundary from this image, which is represented by that red dashed line. You can see the Benjamin interchange, if you will, and sometime we really need to get a different name for that, don't we? I mean, if anybody has any suggestions, but maybe topic of a future conversation. But you can see essentially that several of the properties to the north of this, even some to the northeast of it, and everything to the west of it between it and the and I-15, it and the interchange, are still in Utah County. Given the very significant investment that the city's making to provide utility services to this area, this annexation, in my view, is not only logical, but it's really, really important. And it'd be good to see others as well happen, I think, sooner than later. So it's very easy to support this proposal, to have the property annexed, and as well to simply recommend that rural residential zoning be assigned at the time of annexation. We don't have a development proposal accompanying the annexation at this point in time, so it's customary to assign just an agricultural zone, and it's usually that rural residential zone that we request that you approve in this situation. So Development Review Committee, Planning Commission, they both have recommended that the annexation be approved with the rural residential zoning being assigned.
This also is a public hearing, so I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Anyone that would like to address the mayor and council on this, you're welcome. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal and a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance A20-03, annexing property known as the Thomas Farm annexation and assigning the rural residential zone to the annexed property.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
Second by Councilman Mendenhall. This also will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
That approved. Moving to new business, Spanish Springs subdivision phasing agreement.
This agreement covers a development that was shown as part of that 2700 North Interchange vision plan. I would describe it as the northwest corner of the interchange. The folks developing this project, the Colmena Group is the name of that company. They purchased just about 80 acres a year ago. They will break ground with the council's approval of this agreement probably next week on a 280,000 square foot building. They haven't shared with us who the tenants of that building will be yet, but I know they have some folks in mind and they have plans to do another 5 or 6 similar buildings there. With a project of that size, there's some pretty significant infrastructure requirements, and this phasing agreement simply defines what the developer's obligation will be at different steps through the life of the development. The city, actually, with this agreement, will be taking on some unique responsibilities to help get the project off the ground by, I think in the most significant way, I think you could describe it as almost giving them something of a loan on some of the power improvements, which will not only benefit this project, but others in the area. And we think is, I will say I'll speak for myself, I think it's a very, very worthwhile way to help assist a project of this magnitude to get off the ground and to be developed really in the right way. So that's why we're here. That's the essence of the agreement. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
So they've started moving dirt straight out from the, is that a different project?
That's it. So that's where their
Okay.
first building would be. Yeah, we have an issue. Actually, I think we may have issued a building permit for them, obviously, to issue a grading permit, and we may have issued a building permit at this point just for like footing and foundation. But we won't go beyond that without the approval of this agreement and then posting a bond and doing a handful of other things that I think is still in the works.
Thanks, Dave.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Spanish Springs development and phasing agreement.
Got a motion by Councilman Argyle,
Second.
second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. John Ashworth's fence height approved request.
I think we added the staff report to board docs earlier today. Thanks there, Nick. This property is not far from the Spanish Fork River, and there is a trail that would connect a public street to the river trail along the I need to get this right, along the eastern boundary of the property, as is identified, I think, with a red line there on the plan view image that we see there. I'll let Mr. Ashworth's words speak for themselves. He's requested the ability to construct a 7-foot tall fence instead of 6, just because of a grade difference that exists between his backyard and where the trail is. It's not a significant grade difference in my opinion, but I think that simply requesting an additional foot of height, which does require the council's approval, is a very reasonable request, and it's easy for staff to support what Mr. Ashworth has requested.
Do you want another foot for sitting through the meeting for 2 hours, John? Just,
Well, the cost of the 2x4 is being $7 now. If you'd be a big favor by not having my wife leave the
Amy would,
She has eye contact with everyone that walks in that walking trail.
Amy would appreciate that, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just scroll up one more slide. Just wanted to point out how happy his son was as well in the photo. He is a good-looking boy.
Great.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve John Ashworth fence height approval request.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Go get her built.
You can come back to any time, too. The meetings are
Yeah.
super exciting.
Ordinance 19-20, amending the Title IX Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, adding targeted residential picketing prohibited.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Anna Berge, one of the attorneys in the legal department. My boss, Vaughn, asked me to draft an ordinance for targeted residential picketing. As we've heard in the news recently, there were protests in front of Dr. Angela Dan's home in Salt Lake City. There were protests in front of Governor Herbert in Orem. This protest followed the statewide mask mandate that was supposed to slow down the spread of coronavirus. There are several reasons that would support the inaction of a city ordinance in our city, a similar an ordinance that would prohibit the targeted residential picketing. Gathering in front of a home can be intimidating, disturbing, and frightening. Sometimes this would cause people to feel that they are being captured in their homes. United States Supreme Court has stated that people have the right to feel safe at home. Supreme Court also has previously upheld a city ordinance that would ban the picketing of in front of a home in front of a private residence. And this is in case Frisbee v. Charles in 1988 decision that stemmed from a challenge by anti-abortion protesters in Brookfield, Wisconsin ordinance. A city ordinance that is narrowly tailored, like this draft that we have in front of us today, is supposed to balance two competing interests: the residents' rights to free speech and peacefully protest on public sidewalks and streets, and the people's right to feel secure and safe at home. Picketers and protesters, based on this ordinance, must stay at least 100 feet away from the property line of targeted home, or initially face an administrative notice. If this ticket would be challenged in court, then there would be an infraction. And the second violation of this ordinance would be a Class B misdemeanor. Salt Lake City has had a similar ordinance in place for several years now. Based on the protests that happened, there were several people that were cited or tried to be educated and tell them that they would be found in violation of the ordinance and they would get a ticket. Orem City recently just passed an ordinance that would prohibit targeted residential picketing. This ordinance feels appropriate to be introduced to you today and be in place in our city. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Anna. I do have a question. As I watched Orem approve theirs, I thought to myself, more government. Anytime we pass an ordinance, I think, okay, how much government do I have in my life telling me what I can and can't do? And then I've thought more and more about a lot of the things that you have mentioned, so thank you for bringing up all of those things. I wondered if it's appropriate, Mayor, if Chief comes up and maybe addresses his perspective from our law enforcement. If he were to have to show up and issue citations, does that escalate the situation, or could they perhaps bring cookies and hot chocolate like our new governor-elect did at his home?
Always the best action is the least amount of force, if you will, in any case, in any situation. As you know, when the mask mandate came out from the governor's office, our stand in Spanish Fork was not to go out and arrest everybody, give everybody a citation, take everybody to jail for not wearing a mask. Our stance was to educate and separate. And if an individual refused to do that, then we try to educate them even more. And if we have to, we refer them to Vaughn and Anna's office, and they go to court and tell the court why they were doing what they were doing. Likewise, in this situation, if you were to pass this ordinance, we would do the same. We would try to separate and educate, and do that as much as we can. Sure, we'd share punch and cookies with them if we needed to get them to where they needed to understand the appropriateness or inappropriateness of their action. But without having something like this in our books and on ordinance, then we have nothing to back something else up if we need to go take a further step. Anna's done some great research, and as you can tell, it is a balancing act from what she has said, and probably from your own research and self-education on this. You have a right to privacy in your own home, right to feel like that is your castle and you are free from any harm. Other people have the right to voice their opinion and have free speech and share that as loud as they want to share it, as long as it doesn't disturb on someone else's rights as well. It's a balancing act. Over the years, 30-plus years and even more, the Spanish Fork citizens have followed the laws of allowing people to live in the community and live freely. We haven't had an issue like this. This is something that we see that is across the nation, not necessarily here in Spanish Fork, but we need to have the tools in our belt, on our belt, in the event that something like this does take place, so that we can separate and educate. And if push comes to shove, then we can refer them to the court.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I'll add, Mayor.
Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, I just have a couple of things. I had received some comments and some concerns from citizens, one by phone, the other by email, just that this is infringing on the right to peaceably assemble, infringing upon the right to free speech. One email had even suggested that at the outset, this ordinance is an attempt to protect just one family. My comments to these, just in studying it and researching it, as has been mentioned, it is a balancing act between those constitutional rights and freedoms. I would say that on the outset it is to protect approximately 60-plus families and individuals in our community, not just one particular family. I won't opine as to who that one family or one individual is that the email is referring to. It wasn't stated, and I won't opine as to who that may or may not be, but just looking at what these types of ordinances generally are enacted for, doctors, elected officials, law enforcement. Just look at it in our community. If you take 260 employees at the hospital coming in, if you take 10% of those as doctors, who perform all sorts of medical procedures, but if there are people that don't approve or appreciate a particular medical procedure or procedures that they perform, that's 10% is 26 doctors. You have the city mayor, city council, as well as representatives, senators, possibly governor, currently a lieutenant governor-elect, so 7 to 10 elected officials at any given time, and then law enforcement and other personnel, 20 to 30. And so you're looking at 60 individuals that this is actually going to that castle sanctuary, that health and safety they have. Some of the research I've done, and again, it is one of those things that we don't have these issues in Spanish Fork, but Spanish Fork is a community of pride and progress, looking forward to not just the good things that happen in our community and planning and preparing for those, but the negative things that may also happen. And as Chief said, it's good to have a tool for the tool belt. It is true for limits on free speech, and this is some research I found. Government may set rules on where, when, and how public protests or other gatherings can take place, as long as those rules are reasonable, are not content-based, and are narrowly tailored. This, I feel, is very reasonable to expect that anyone, doctors, elected officials, law enforcement, you name it, those people that in current media and things like that are under fire, it is reasonable for them to expect some measure of privacy and safety. The limit on the public assembly is not content-based. There is nothing that says that no signs or speech cannot take place, and it is very narrowly tailored in that it cannot take place within 100 feet of the home of the targeted individual. The secondary and tertiary effects being that they would then set up across the street or next to the neighbor's house, and so you're now putting that crowd or that gathering, peaceably gathering, hopefully, in front of the neighbor instead of in front of the elected official, the doctor, the law enforcement officer, who some have stated in comments that, well, that's what they have gotten themselves into, that's what they know they are in for. If that's the case, then we will find fewer and fewer people wanting to run for public office. There are many people that don't do it in our community and other communities for fear of reprisal. In recent events, in the time I've been on the council, there have been members of the council that their employment has been gone after simply because decisions were not to the liking of those that received those decisions from this body. So it's not incorrect, I believe, to assume that their home would also be under attack as well. And I use attack only in that if someone's going to go after your place of employment, the way that you care for your family financially, I think it would be reasonable to assume that they would also go and not necessarily be peaceably assembling. So I do find this reasonable. It is not content-based and is very narrowly tailored, and so I find that it does balance that, just in my own layman terms. No legal knowledge or training, but just looking at it and researching it, just as those that have contacted me researching their belief in the Constitution. Just wanted to put that out there, Mayor, and address those comments that we've received.
Any other comments?
Mine will be quick. I appreciate Brandon and Councilman Gordon and Councilman Scove's comments. I think it is a balancing act, like Chief put it. I think it's important when you're talking about government decisions, when they deal with free speech and the right to peaceably assemble, that something's not jumping the shark, as they say, right, and get clear out there. When I thought about this ordinance and read it the way it's been detailed from our attorney's office, I thought of the mayor, the way he conducts meetings, public meetings that we hold, and and when a viewpoint is expressed and somebody really likes it, maybe starts clapping or starts agreeing with it. Our mayor and other places I know as well do a good job of reminding people, hey, the reason why we don't want you to do that is the intimidation of somebody that might have a different viewpoint, and everybody's viewpoint is important to be able to say it. And so I view this in a similar way, and Keir made a good point. Boy, you certainly don't want a public official has signed up to be in the arena, like Teddy Roosevelt said. Certainly their spouse and their kids haven't done that, and so it does, when I see the news reports, makes me cringe a little bit to think of the uncomfortable nature of a spouse and kids at someone's home and wondering, what's going on, and so it really would. There's a lot of good people out there to serve in a whole lot of different ways. I just hope they wouldn't get discouraged by something like that happening here. The last thing that came to mind about this ordinance was the aspect of a meeting that Seth and I have participated in, week-long meetings, or they've been going for months, with a task force with chiefs of police from all over the valley, all over the state, that have dealt with all different levels of civil unrest in communities, from the police chief in Ogden to Bountiful to everywhere else across up and down the Wasatch Front, and just those ideas, being able to learn from their years of experience and the facts, making it through. Rather than always the emotion, but one chief said today that really stood out to me, and I had to write it down while we were on that meeting, is he said, hey, we've got to do a better job at communicating to maybe the generation that feels so disenfranchised in a way that maybe civil unrest is coming from. And he brought up the recent documentary Social Dilemma and asked, have you seen Social Dilemma? And talked about the way that kids are getting their news. Mayor Caldwell has a couple of younger daughters, and he says they never watch the the news. They do get their information from social media. And in that vein, why he said that is he said, hey, these people, these citizens are our next cops. They're our next employees of police force. We don't want them to have an opinion that's, we want to help make sure we're educating on opinions and whatnot. And also they're the decision makers. They're the decision makers in our community too. And so that aspect echoed back to me in this ordinance too, to where I think this does do the right thing of balancing that the precious right of free speech that this country stands for, and still keeping people safe in their castle, like Chief mentioned. So I appreciate it. Thanks for your good work out of the legal department's office coming up with it. Anna, great job.
Anyone else? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 19-20, amending Title IX, Peace, Public Morals, and Welfare, adding targeted residential picketing prohibited.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Member Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
Is that,
Okay.
is that effective now, or is there a waiting period on that, where it's just an amendment?
30 days from published,
Okay.
20 days from passing.
So it's the same as if it was a new ordinance? Oh, it's not amending number 9?
Title IX exists,
Title.
this section is not in there yet.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Kent, FY 2020 Independent Financial Audit Report.
I'd like to present that to you, but I haven't received it yet. So it is finished for the most part. The issue is we received some CARES Act money. We got our share from the county because of the size of our county. They gave it to us the very last week of June, and we spent some of the money allocated into last year, and we were waiting for, so it needs to be audited and what they call a special single audit. But we've been waiting for the federal government to release those audit questions to the auditors so they know what to test on those expenditures that we expended. So in the end, what it means is that the audit is under temporary draft right now, pending waiting to see what the audit on those CARES funds are going to be done. But that audit program hasn't been released from the U.S. Treasury yet for the auditors to audit. So it was supposed to be released in September, and it almost gets released, and then they pull it back and make changes. Just this afternoon, I was speaking with the auditors, and they've called the Treasury. They call the Treasury every couple days, because any entity that spent any money as of last year, as of the end of June, would be underneath this single audit test also. Some cities didn't get their CARES money until in July or August, and so those would fall into the next year's audit, but ours fell into the last year's audit. So I need to table this. The audit is done and written, ready to do, except for the auditor's opinion, and there's just one more part of the audit they're waiting to finish to do. If it's finished by the end of the year, we'll submit it to the state auditor's office, and then have you ratify that in the first meeting in January, once those tests is done. But tonight I do not have the audit to present to you, which tonight would be a good night to do it, but I don't have it to give it to you. So we'll just ask you a motion to table this to the first meeting in January.
So you want us to put it first, you're going to be sure we're going to have it the first meeting in January?
If we have to postpone it again,
Or
we'll
should we
table
just-
it again.
Right, 'cause we can just table it and then not put a date on it. and
Until
you
it's
can
ready.
Put it back on.
Okay. It's not an advertised hearing or anything like that, so it's just an item in the agenda.
So I just in your motion, I just say we'll table this to a future date.
I move we table the fiscal year 2020 independent financial audit report.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall,
Second.
second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 20-27, providing for the creation of a local building authority by Spanish Fork City, Utah, authorizing official action and providing an effective date.
Mayor and Council, as you know, the city is looking at building a new library and finance offices. And one of the tools we would like to use to do that is to create a local building authority. The reason why we would do that is it becomes a separate legal entity. It's a corporation that would hold the property as an asset in its corporation and then lease this new building back to the city. And the city would pay those lease payments. Those lease payments become the revenue stream that act as the security for a bond. So it's a financing tool to build a new building secured by the lease payments from the city. To do that, we need to adopt a resolution. The resolution includes the articles of incorporation of this new entity and the bylaws that they would operate under. Then, once the building authority holds its first meeting, it would ratify those bylaws that you adopt tonight. Guess what? The Board of Trustees of this local building authority is you all, and you're also the incorporators of the new corporation. So that's spelled out in the ordinance, the resolution, and the articles of incorporation. And so it's like a lot like you would be serving as the RDA board. You would also be Board of Trustees for the local building authority. Do you have any questions about that process? Jonathan Ward from Zions Bank Public Finance is here. He could address any questions you might have about bonding, but tonight really isn't about the bonding. It's really to create this new entity.
So I guess my question is, that's who I am already. Why are you doing this, creating another entity?
We're creating another entity so they can hold the assets separate from the city, so that the city then makes lease payments to the local building authority, and the local building authority can issue bonds. If that makes sense.
I guess I'm not getting this, because we have assets. We already have the asset. The city has assets. I guess I'm not understanding why you want to create a separate third.
If
the library's ours, the library Spanish Fork City, and now
Is.
you're saying you're going to put it under this local authority, another
Right.
group,
Yes.
which is the council right now.
Right. And it always will be. The council will be the Board of Trustees there. The reason is because to borrow money to build the library, we have to pledge some sort of revenue, some sort of security. And that could be a general obligation bond, which goes to an election, which you pledge the general revenues of the city, or it could be sales tax bond or municipal energy tax or things like that you can pledge. But by pledging the lease payments from the city to the municipal building authority, that's another way you can do it without having to pledge those sources of revenue or to have an election or things like that.
Have we not already made those decisions concerning the library?
Does he have nuts?
And you didn't bring any.
No chocolate.
any-
Probably not.
No, you did great, Bon.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
gonna leave and let you talk.
So we can do a couple of different mechanisms, but you can't really mix the streams, if you will. If you're going to pledge sales tax, you can use whatever revenue you want, but you have to pledge your sales tax. And that then takes away from your capacity to use the sales tax for something that you may need to use it for later. I don't know what that could be, but it takes the capacity of using your sales tax. So as Vaughn was just explaining, creating this LBA, a lot of organizations call it an MBA, but this local building authority gives us the ability to pledge lease revenue. Then we can take the different revenue sources that we've already identified for this, which are in part property tax revenue that we've already set, and then some utility enterprise fund revenues as well. And we can put all of those together in that lease payment and make it, and pay the bond in that way. And we get a pretty great rate. It's not quite the same as a sales tax, although it's right now pretty
close, I think is what Jonathan might say. But it's really a bonding tool that makes it so we don't have to pledge our sales tax. And the value in not pledging our sales tax in this situation is we don't have to. We have this mechanism that we can use. And some other need may come up. It may not, but if some other need comes up and we need that sales tax capacity, we wouldn't have it. And so this gives us the ability to preserve that sales tax capacity and use this tool for it. And Jonathan, maybe you've done a really good job of helping educate me on what these are best used for, but really they were created by the legislature to build buildings. That was the purpose of it. Maybe you can give us a good history of that.
So is the leasee the library department?
No, it's the city.
So
Yeah, so remember, like the RDA is that it's actually a separate government entity, right? And so the redevelopment agency has a contract with Spanish Fork City. We do that all the time already, right? We have the redevelopment agency has a contract, its attorney, Bond, writes it, its body approves it, the RDA board, and then 2 seconds later, back in the council meeting, the city council then approves it as well. And so you are creating a contract between the RDA and the city. It is with yourself, and so that's, I think, where a lot of confusion can occur. But technically and legally is between two different government entities. And that's how this will be. That's how this would be. And I think it would be helpful, Jonathan, for maybe an hour and a half presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you bet. Great questions, and as has already been mentioned, it's a financing tool. There are certain projects like roads, parks, sometimes intangible type of assets that are better financed with sales tax revenue bonds because you're not also encumbering assets. One piece of the information that Vaughn didn't mention, in addition to the pledged lease revenue payment from city to building authorities, the financed improvements are taken as collateral. So the library itself and the office space is up for foreclosure in the event of a missed payment. Whereas if you have a blade of grass in a park, that's not going to be worth anything to investors. They don't want asphalt on the roads because they can't come in and repossess those. So in order to sort of maximize the tools that are available to the city, we look at all of them and say, well, what's going to make the most sense for this particular project? It's real estate, number one, so specifically lends itself to the real estate financing tool that the legislature has authorized, which is the building authority bonds. Secondly, we look at source and mechanism of payment, which in this case, as Seth had indicated, is multiple sources. We can't issue water revenue bonds for this whole building because it's not utilized exclusively by the water department. We can't use sewer revenue bonds for this particular building because it isn't used exclusively by the sewer department. But there might be components of the sewer fund or the water fund that pitch into the annual payment. And so this building authority financing enables us to use all sorts of payment mechanisms to finance the project without pledging as security specifically the water fund or the sewer fund, which, as you know, have already been pledged for plant upgrades and water system improvements, which is what those particular bonds are used for. I think that's all I've got. But if you have additional questions, I'm happy to try to address those as well. And bridge mix. I think in 2021 we're going to start with bridge mix again.
If you want to come back to my city, you better.
Okay.
We do plan to come back.
Okay, well then.
In January, the plan would be, once this is created, if it's created by the council, to come back and further the bonding process. As Vaughn indicated, this isn't necessarily directly related to the bonds, but in order to do the bonds, we do have to create a building authority.
Thank you.
So just like we adjourn in meetings to go into RDA, whenever we have a business type of thing dealing with this building authority, we'll advertise a separate agenda and adjourn this meeting to go into that meeting. And like you said, it's a tool. It's just so as we go to present a debt or sell our bonds, we go as the entity of the building authority. And so that's why we create this right now with this. We get bylaws and create this entity, and you just become one more hat that you'll wear as being a city council, RDA, or building authority. So it helps us to issue bonds, the bottom line.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 20-27, providing for the creation of a local building authority by Spanish Fork City, Utah, authorizing official action and providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. This will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilmember Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Okay. Wastewater treatment plant interlocal agreement.
Chris had to leave, so you're stuck with me. As you know, or maybe you don't know, Mapleton City sends its wastewater to our sewage treatment plant. And we've had an interlocal agreement with them for a number of years to kind of govern that relationship. But now that we've started a new treatment plant, a big time upgrade, which includes a lot of borrowed money, we needed to update that agreement. So this new draft agreement would basically shares the cost of the capital cost of this new plant with Mapleton City. And so Mapleton's going to pay 20% of the bonding costs and to acquire a 20% share in the new plant. Now, it's not just capacity, but it's really 20% of the bricks and mortar or the real property that is the plant, including the land, because they'll be paying 20% of the cost of it. Mapleton is sign. Part of the agreement is a promissory note where they promise to pay us those payments of principal and interest over the years. It also addresses things like O&M costs for the new plant and the ownership of some joint trunk lines. We already do have some trunk lines that we use together. So it addresses those things as well. Trying to think if there's anything else. There's an advisory board that makes recommendations on operating the facility, and Mapleton agrees to follow our pre-treatment rules and things like that for the treatment plant. Are there any questions?
Does this include the property?
It does.
So Mapleton City right now is 26% of our sewer plant, so that's being lessened to 20?
I don't know those technical answers. I wrote a lot of the agreement, but
I
they
knew they
fed
had
me the
talked about
information.
that
And I wish Chris were here, but he had to run.
The answer is yes, they are
Okay.
increasing capacity.
Is it? Yeah, okay. Imagine Spanish Fork's probably growing at a faster rate than Mapleton is growing, so.
When is it on their agenda, or has it already?
At the 18th, I think,
Okay.
so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the wastewater treatment plant interlocal agreement.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That does it. Okay, no closed session.
Just wish Pete Hansen a happy birthday before I move to adjourn.
Sweet.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Hope everyone has a Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.